Good morning and welcome to the last and the final session, that is the third session on production and cost of chapter 3. In the last session, we were talking about the short-run cost, long-run cost, law of diminishing marginal product and law of variable proportions. Now we are going to talk about yet another interesting concept, returns to scale. Now, whenever we talk about business, we also talk about a very important concept called as return on investment. Now, what is this return on investment? If I have invested 1,000 rupees in a business, I need to see a return coming out of that 1,000, which means I need to see at least 1 rupee profit than what I have invested. So automatically every business will be interested on returns to scale, and that returns to scale is very important concept when it comes to economics. So there are three types of returns to scale: constant, increasing and decreasing. Now the returns to scale is something which is more related here from a production concept. So in the production, what we are trying to do here is that once we start getting into the production concept, we are initially at a constant level, which means the output is constant. We are manufacturing and you are getting a constant output, let's say 100 units per day. So this is your constant output that you are seeing. Now you are very happy at this situation. Why? Because constantly there is some return coming to me. So that gives a positive indication to the entrepreneur, to the manufacturer, saying that yes, we have done something, now we are getting a constant return. The industry is running at a stable speed altogether. From that 100, suddenly your output starts increasing to 150 per day. So now what happens? The excitement is doubled. Now you are very happy that your output is increasing, and it has increased by 50% compared to the previous stage. Earlier you were getting 100 units per day, now you are getting 150 units per day. So it is getting exciting. The journey has started for you. So now you feel that there is an increasing output for you. So that increasing output is really great. It's going to take you to the next level. But then after some time, let's say about 5 years or 10 years down the lane, you suddenly start seeing that the same 150 has today come down to 50 units per day. Now why is this? Why is that sudden decrease? Why is that good successful story, the happy story, suddenly come to a sad ending altogether? Why that decreasing factor come altogether is because it says that beyond a point, any production will hit a saturation, and that saturation will automatically lead to a decline. So you also come to a decline position and you start saying that, sir, I have declined, I have come to the end of the road. So that is the point where you start seeing that your output has started coming down. Your output has now started steadily declining. So now the returns to the scale for all the employment of input, for all the variable inputs that you had invested and you started growing with it, now has started to decline. They have failed to give you the desired return. So at this juncture, what happens is that the output that you were getting, the output that you were receiving has started coming down, has started decreasing to a greater level altogether. Moving forward, the Cobb-Douglas function. Before we start understanding the Cobb-Douglas function, we need to understand this word called as cost. What does cost mean to us? In a normal term, we use this word in the place of price. Now, moment people ask you, what is the cost of a pen? What is the cost of your shoes? What is the cost of your shirt? Now, when people ask you this question, you relate it to price. In economics, the word cost has got slightly an extended meaning. So in order to understand that meaning, we need to go through the Cobb-Douglas production function. They were the two great economists who framed this production function. What does this production function talk about? It says that to develop, to manufacture a quantity Q1. If you see here, a quantity Q1, it equals two factors, variables x1, x2, and there are two variable factors to that, that is A and B. Now, to manufacture anything, there are several variable factors that are included. To manufacture a quantity Q1 of two products x1 and x2, there are variable factors A and B involved. What does this say to us? It says that for any manufacturing factor altogether, there are a lot of variable inputs that are needed, and that variable input will move towards the diminishing return of scale. So as discussed in the previous slide, the more and more you bring in the inputs, the more and more you employ the variable factors, automatically what happens? It tends to move towards the diminishing return to scale. So that means it will start moving towards the decline. So the same quantity Q1, at one fine juncture, it will start coming down. You will not be able to produce the same quantity Q1. Why? Because after certain point, after certain juncture, what will happen is that the Q1, Q2, then it will start coming down. How much ever you start putting in the inputs, all the variables will start moving towards the diminishing return of scale. So they will all start coming down towards saturation. Moving on to the next slide. Total cost. Now we have heard about cost. What is total cost all about? So is that something called as partial cost, mixed cost, and then a total cost? Well, to answer your question, total cost means total fixed cost plus total variable cost. Now when you talk about cost, normally, as I have told you, you just give one quantitative answer. If anybody asks you, what is the cost of a pen? You will say 10 rupees. Now that 10 rupees, you are not going to break up and say 5 rupees on variable, 5 rupees on fixed cost. That is not the way how we answer in the general public. But then, when it comes to economics, when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to the production in particular, there are various factors of cost that are involved. And what are those factors? Fixed cost and variable cost. So when you say that the total cost TC equals to TVC plus TFC. This is a very, very important formula for us to remember in the exam also. Total cost is equal to total variable cost plus total fixed cost. So whenever we are manufacturing, we will keep in mind all the fixed factors plus all the variable factors, and then finally put in a price for the finished product, and that final price will be the total cost. So whenever a product comes to the market and we say it is MRP, maximum retail price, that MRP, when you translate it in economics, that is nothing but the concept that the mixture of fixed cost plus variable cost put together. So that is what would be the final price which the consumer will be willing to pay in the market. So total cost is nothing but, a quick recap, total fixed cost plus total variable cost, which is equal to the total cost factor altogether. Now moving on to the next slide. Average variable cost. As we have already discussed the word average, which means something which is quite natural, something on a mid-value range, something on a general level basis. So total variable divided by quantity. Now here is the most important factor that we need to understand. There are a lot of variable factors that will come inside when we are talking about the average variable cost. Why? Because variables itself are those that will keep changing. So on an average basis, when you are customizing something, when you are adding up some extra values, some extra inputs, automatically what will happen here is that there will be a change in the output. So how can be the change in the output measured? Total variable. What is the total amount of variable factors that you are bringing in? What is the total amount of variations that you are bringing in divided by the quantity? That is how much is your output. When you divide that, you get your average variable cost. Now, to give you a simple example, in the car industry, you see different variants altogether. For example, in Maruti cars, you would start seeing LX, VX and ZX versions. Now, all of them are the same car, but what does the version mean to you? That means there is some variability factor that is added. Might be some more technological progress, some more extra fittings or additional components that have been added in each and every version. Those are all your variable costs. That's why from one version to the next version, that is from a base version to the mid version to the high-end version, there is a price differentiation. Why does this price differentiation happen? Because there is a variable cost that gets included. So moment that variable cost gets included, automatically the price will also start going up. But for Maruti as an industry, when you start understanding, there is a total variable cost, because they are not just going to manufacture one line or one version. They're going to manufacture all kinds of versions. So for them, there will be a total variable cost. They will include all the variable factors put together, divided by the number of cars they produce. That will give them the average variable cost. Moving on to the next slide. Short-run average cost. Now, what is a short-run average cost? Sir, is there something even in short-run cost will come into picture? The answer is an absolute yes. Why? Because whether you are producing for a short-run purpose or for a long-run purpose, you will see that cost as an important factor. So what is the total cost on which we are going to run? The total cost, let's say that it is 100 rupees. Divided by the quantity. The quantity is 10. So our short-run average cost is 10 rupees. So how did I arrive at this? The total cost. The total cost is 100 rupees. What is the quantity that we have produced? 10. So 100 divided by 10 is equal to 10. On a short-run average basis also, there is some cost involved. So we will first try to understand what is the total cost of the product divided by the number of quantity, that is divided by the number of output that we are going to design. If the output is going to be 100, 10, 50, 1000, whatever is that, we are going to divide it by that and find out the short run average cost. That will give us a picture, even in the short run, how much would be the cost that is needed to manufacture that particular product. So this is very, very important from an exam standpoint also. Total cost divided by quantity will give you the short run average cost. Moving on to the next slide. The short run average cost, which is represented to you now in a graph format. Now, as I have told you, graph is very, very simple to understand when it comes to economics. What you need to keep in your mind is what are you going to take as your inputs along the x-axis and y-axis. In this graph that is being shown to you, now we are going to see that the x-axis we are going to take the output, and in the y-axis we are going to take the cost factor altogether. So let us try drawing a graph, try to understand what is happening here. In the x-axis we are going to take the word output. In the y-axis we are going to take the word cost. So now when we have taken this graph, we are trying to find out how is the short run average cost coming into picture. This is the origin O. From the origin, once you start manufacturing, the graph keeps going up. What is that graph line that is going up? Your total variable cost. Now you will see that the total variable cost keeps increasing right from the day of your production. That is quite obvious. Why? Because once you have started producing something, there is a variable factor that is added to you during the production cycle. So your total variable cost has started increasing as you go up the production line. With that, you will also see that there is a short-term cost also coming. But that short-term cost will keep on going to the next level altogether. Why? Because that short-term cost is also a part of your production rally. It also starts coming up. So you will see the next graph line as the short-term cost here. Now, with the short-term cost and the total variable cost, there is also an important factor called as the TFC. That's called as the total fixed cost. Now, what is a total fixed cost? That is a straight line which tries to say that the total fixed cost is always a constant factor. How much ever you are going to manufacture, the total fixed cost will not change. So the total fixed cost will remain constant. So the significance of this graph is quite simple. Let me just try to repeat it again for you. We are going to draw a graph with output on the x-axis, cost on the y-axis. This is the origin O. At the first level, you will draw a graph, you will draw a line for total variable cost, which tends to increase over a period of time because you have started manufacturing. As you are manufacturing, there will be a short-term cost also. The short-term cost is why? Because it is a part of your production rally. With that factor, there will be a horizontal straight line that will be going, which is fixed in nature. That is called as your total fixed cost. Once you have completed this, you will be able to understand your short-run average cost. Now, moving forward, the long run cost. The long run cost are the accumulated cost when the firm changes its production level over the time in response to the economic profit or losses. Now, what happens, as I have told you, once you have decided that to go long, to build a business, to create an industrial empire, at that point of time, cost does not become important to you. You understand that there is a demand, if not today, tomorrow. So you want to manufacture for a longer while. You want to build that products to a greater length. So you keep on manufacturing at a steady level altogether. So the process is not completed. You want to keep on manufacturing, reach a particular stage altogether. So what you do here is that as per the need, as per the time, you start manufacturing. You understand the demand in the market. Now you feel that you have to manufacture more in a particular season. You have to reduce that in a particular season. So as per the demand fluctuations, you will just keep on manufacturing like this. So you will see that the graph tends to move up and down as per the demand available in the market. The second factor is that in the long run, there are no fixed factors of production. This is very, very important. When you are doing business in a long term, you cannot have your mind fixed. You cannot have a predetermined notion. You cannot have a predetermined objective saying that this much only I am going to produce. This is what is going to be the market. You cannot become a predictive term altogether. You cannot say that, sir, I will restrict myself to this level and I can still survive. In a long run, you need to keep your mind open, flexible, and you need to start developing manufacturing as per the need of the market, as per the demand function altogether. So in a long run production, in a long run cost factor, there are no fixed factors at all. Everything starts changing as a variable factor altogether. You can change the labor, you can change the capital, you can change your other machinery factors. You can also expand your industry by buying more land. So what you tend to do in a long run cost is that try to keep everything as open-minded as possible and start growing with the need of the market. Moving on to the next slide. We are going to talk about the long run cost. What is this long run cost altogether? Now again, when we come to the graph, we are not going to change the coordinates. We are going to take the same output in the x-axis and we are going to take the cost in the y-axis. But in this graph, there is a slight difference. If you clearly look into the graph, you will see many short-run cycles like this. Short run 1, short run 2, short run 3. So you have seen short run average cost 1, short run average cost 2, short run average cost 3. So the combination of all short run costs will give me the long run. What do I mean by saying this in the graph is that over a period of time, the combination of every small cycles, maybe from January to March, again from April to June, then from July to August or to September, then I keep moving from October to December. When I keep on putting all the short run curves together, at the end of 1 year, I get a combination factor called as a long run graph. So the long run graph is not something new. The long run cost graph is not something totally innovated kind of thing. It is the combination of all the short run put together, which at the end will give out the same factor called as your long run cost. All the short run average cost, first one, second one, third one, put it together, you will get the long run average cost. So this long run average cost is available with the plant size, which means to say that with the nature of industry, with the type of manufacturing, with the growth sector, the segment altogether, you will start getting the variation in the long run. Certain industries might initially manufacture low, then they will speed up their manufacturing. Certain industries will initially start up with a big number, then they will come down, again they will increase. So you can see the variation happening throughout the graph, throughout the year, as long as the industry continues to survive in that particular series. So this is why the long run graph is quite interesting for us to know in economics. Moving on to the next slide. We come to the conclusion of the chapter 3, that is called as production and cost. So what is that we learned from this chapter, production and cost? The first thing that we started learning is the various factors that are involved in production. So we try to understand what is production, what are the factors like cost of production, revenue, profit, the basic terminology. So the first thing that we try to understand is the basis that is needed for production and cost factor altogether. The second thing, the different product concept. We spoke about total product, marginal product, average product. Now, when we try to understand these products, we also try to understand the concept, the formulas behind them, because when we talk about production, it is not just about one product. It is the combination of total product, marginal product, and average product. So there are different types of product that are involved in production. Next, we also spoke about the impact of cost on production. Until this chapter came into existence, we were not really bothered about cost or price. But moment we started reading chapter 3, we started understanding the biggest impact on production is cost. So cost will actually try to make a difference in your production. So we try to understand the cost, the short run average cost, the long run average cost, the impact of these costs on production. Next, we also try to understand the different type of cost itself. Total cost, average cost, all these factors are the different types of cost that we were trying to understand. Why these costs comes into picture? Because not every industry will just go with one final price. There are different types of pricing, different types of costs that will affect the production. So we also try to understand those factors when it came to cost and production. The last one, variation in levels of production during long run and short run. Probably through this entire chapter, what we have been trying to concentrate, trying to focus is that how is the production variation happening? Be it any kind of industry that you are going to see in this world, they are all going to go through the same phase. They will initially start with a short run, then convert themselves into long run, again come back to short run. So what they will try to do is that combine the cycles, combine the variations, and try to keep themselves on the survival mode. So which means to say that the cost and production lesson, the most important factor, the takeaway from this lesson, the key takeaway would be the variation levels, the short run cost, the long run cost. This is also important from your exam standpoint because you will definitely get a question from the short run and the long run. This would be for a 6 marks that can come to you in your examination. So we need to concentrate on the short run and the long run question because that is also the key factor of the lesson, plus that will also able to get you marks in the examination. With this, we come to the conclusion of the chapter 3, production and cost. I hope and believe that you have enjoyed this lesson, understood the concepts, and you were able to take away some valuable points in economics. Thank you for joining me today on this wonderful session on chapter 3, production and cost. I hope that you have enjoyed this session. Thank you once again.